So, hello everyone. I hope you still can hear me. Just let me know also if you can see the presentation, which hopefully present right. Okay, thanks, Stephen, again. Yes, this QR code you will see at the beginning and at the end from my session. So that's the session feedback. Please provide some feedback, and I'm super happy to have you here in my session. We're not that many people right now, but maybe some other will join as well. We try to start like a Swiss just in time, and we have some topics also about just in time, so that's why we just in time starts. My session title is called Identity Governance, Valid and Secured Identities Gold, and I'm sure you say that's the way to go, that identity is one of the main key features we have to protect. But before we start, some few words about the sponsors. Thank you very much to the sponsors that can happen today, thanks to ScriptRunner, ID Point, and of course of the community of Drago. Thanks a lot for having us here and to sponsor this day, actually. So some words about me. I'm focused on Microsoft 365 security and identity. I work in that area since a couple of years now. And if I have time, I try to work also a bit in the community, like today. I really like to speak and to blog and to be a geek on the IT tech stuff inside. And if I have free time, that happens sometimes, I go on the bike, and I like to ski as well. So, and if there is no COVID, I try to travel the world. Today or during this year, you all agree with me, it was pretty heavy to travel, but yeah, better we stay safe. As you can see, I'm not an MEP or a regional director, but I just have fun to support the community. If you like to follow me, I'm available on my own blog alainschneiter.com, on Twitter or Insta. Just feel free to follow me during this session, or even better after this session. What's the agenda? So the agenda will point out a bit on the zero trust model. So zero what? Zero, maybe you heard about what is zero trust and why it comes in a very aligned part of that identity governance and protecting the identities. And then we will dive a bit into the identity governance, which is Azure service actually. It's called also privileged identity for users and groups. So we'll have a look at that. The groups still in preview, but we'll try to show you the demo and hopefully works. And then we will also dive into the access reviews and access package a bit. Normally I ask the people in the session, have you tried already this identity governance? And if yes, just feel free to raise your hand and just pop out and see what you have done in the past already. Have you tried already this identity governance part, or is it new to you? Just raise your hand if it's new. So it's all set here. That's cool. So zero trust. What is zero trust? If we go back a bit in the years, in 1990s, employees still worked or mainly worked from home. Not from home, sorry, I'm fully in a homework thing right now. Every employee usually worked in their corporate office, of course, not at home. That would be nice, but it was not the case back in the 90s. As you can see here, we have that very old computer. We were connected to maybe each other. We didn't have that much connection yet, so we really stayed in the corporate office, and that's a way we had also back in the years. So we really worked within the companies and started using computers, and that was the main model back in the 90s. So later in the 90s, maybe the mid 90s, the traditional model, which is called, started to get involved into companies and implemented in companies. Sites were connected through VPN solutions, and step by step also there was an internet connection available. We blocked that by firewalls. We had some WAN connections to our sub-sites, to different companies as well. We started doing federation with these guys. And mainly firewalls and VPN were the main thing we used back in the 90s. But then it started to change a bit. If you have a look on that slide here, you can see we still have our corporate network, which is the case, of course, and we still have our old-fashioned VPN solutions, maybe a bit more performance over the internet or over the connections, but there is still that traditional model in place. And we implemented, or it started then with some other services, like we used personal laptops, we were remote workers more and more. We had some partners which we had to involve into our work and attach to our company's networks. And a very big thing we had in the back was, or is, the IoT devices. So IoT devices needs to be connected now to our network. And of course, we have all the SaaS apps which are provided and very easy to get, to purchase, or to attach to our network. Maybe you're aware of one of the really first SaaS app which was implemented. I don't know if you know the year. It was back in 2000, so it's 20 years back now with Salesforce. It was one of the first SaaS app, let's say. It's 20 years back, so it's not just yesterday. It's really a long time since it's there. So we use, say, SAS app since a while. Also, some services like Wi-Fi connections in Starbucks, free Wi-Fi connections came into in 2002, for example. And then it started to get more and more involved into these SaaS applications, like when the first iPhone was released. So we had all these stores available where we just had to provide our credit card, and we could just order that SaaS app. That was back in 2007, and then it started with other SaaS app like Office 365 back in 2011, which is now, more or less 10 years ago. So that brings us to the Zero Trust approach. The approach means we do not trust. We do not trust any device. We do not trust identities. We do not even trust our boundaries. We always try to verify. So we verify each access to our company. We verify our identities, and we verify our applications. And there is a nice overview of that Zero Trust access model. If we go into that Zero Trust access model, you can see it is very aligned to the conditional access from Azure Active Directory. We have on our left side our employees or partners. They try to access our applications, our environments, our backend, mainly through an internet connectivity, through internet access. The Zero Trust access model then starts to verify, is the identity healthy? Is the device maybe managed, or is it an untrusted device? If it's an untrusted device, we may only allow access through web applications, so Office 365 web app, web model, or we just limit that access. In some cases, we also do an additional MFA requirement. This allows us to give a rich experience to our user. It's still verified and it's trusted in the way we provide. So this Zero Trust model comes with some specific major phases. They're starting with verifying the identity and then going to the device, verifying the access, and in the backend, verifying the service, even the service, the application deployed. So if we have a look on the verify identity, we can see that the secure admin workstations, for example, the SAW enforcement for some admin needs to be one scenario. That could be a scenario to identify the access, the workstation itself, or also some specific parts of the identity. So maybe we have a risky sign-in and we would like to provide a second factor on that. And of course, we will also provide some more details about the devices in a next step. So you can see, maybe the device has to be device registered within Azure. It needs to be hybrid joined, or even a Intune fully managed device. That gives us the way to verify the device health. And then it goes to the access, and depending on the access configured, we have access to our applications in the backend. So it means when we really start with having a zero trust model in place, or we try to start with a zero trust model, we can start with verifying the identities. That's one point. Yes, that's correct. We have to protect our identities. But where do we start? So just maybe keep calm and Batman will protect you. No, that will not work. You have really to do some work there. And we will dive into that now. So identity governance helps you to protect identities. It helps also to protect your resources in the backend, like accessing Microsoft Teams, SharePoint sites, groups, or other resources. And one main thing which also was mentioned during the sessions before, we are in 2020 now, and I assume that you use MFA. So we will not deep dive in MFA because I think that should be done. So that's something we really had to implement during the past 2 years for at least our privileged accounts, let's say, but even better for all our users, even for guest accounts. Just one short summary about do MFA right. Make sure you have some break glass accounts configured, and they are not protected usually by MFA. So in case MFA fails, there is an outage on site, we will not protect these guys with MFA, but we will audit the logins and alerting these logins to our main SCM solution. We will also have to change to modern authentication on all services. That means Skype for Business, if it's still in place, if you use Exchange Online, Exchange Hybrid, move to modern authentication, block legacy authentication, also use modern authentication for your shell, enable that. That's one of the main things you also have to do. And then in a second way, use the new way of using MFA together with conditional access. So provide some conditional access policies for MFA. And if that is possible, control the devices using Microsoft Endpoint Manager, Intune Configuration Manager. Those two worlds get together and help you to really control your devices. Even if there are BYOD devices, you have the options to bring in a process to use different resources in the backend then. So 2020, MFA should be done. Next steps, maybe you should go to identity governance, and let's have a look on that, what you get there. It's the whole part is also called entitlement management, access reviews, privileged identity management. Identity governance covers all that stuff, so it's easy for your employees to request some access to resources. It's flexible approval workflows, so you can provide your own workflows, you can provide your policies depending on the access package, maybe depending on the resources in the backend. It's timeline based. That means all the accesses users request, they will have a time-based access for a specific time. You can provide these assignments as well. And also a very nice option to automatically delete guest accounts which have not logged in for a while, which has no access to any access packages or resources on your site. What is PIM doing for you? So PIM, Privileged Identity Management, helps you to provide some just-in-time access. It helps you to request access only when it's needed. And that's a very important part based on the admin roles, it makes sense to provide this to your users. I have to say here, it's a P2 feature that can be licensed with itself. So you can protect your admins, for example, with a P2 license and assign this license to these guys and make sure they have the option to use the just-in-time access, privileged access. We'll have a look on that right now, how it works and how you can do that. Enforce multi-factor on the authentication. That's possible within the role itself. You can request an additional multi-factor request. Maybe it does make sense, maybe not. It really depends on your requirements. Also get notified if a role has been activated, so it's monitored and logged. You can download also these audit histories, and the nice thing is also you have a process, approval process, which you can provide if, for example, a global admin needs some PIM rights. Before he gets these rights, he goes through an approval process, so it's a four eyes indicator. Let's have a look on the PIM side now. If we go to our Azure portal, please feel free to tell me if you can see that. You see the portal here. You can search by PIM here on the applications. If you go to the PIM site, you can see your tasks or your own task, which is the role, your roles you get. I'm currently logged in with Alain Schneiter. It's called Scope-Wise Labs. I have some roles assigned, and you can also, as an admin of a PIM admin, you can manage these roles. So for example, if you go to these Azure roles, you have the roles available here, and if we search, for example, for the global admin, you will find the global administrator here. You see straight away which role has eligible assignments for that specific role. In our case, we configure here the global administrator role. We have eligible access or assignments for the demo 01 user. So this means the user is assigned as eligible and does not have a permanent access to these global administrator roles. We also have an easy overview of the access, of the current access. So we see a few guys, they have currently access as an admin, myself and some other people, and also some expired access or assignments. Within the role itself, you have the option to configure this role. So there is a few options you may like to change. For example, we have a activation maximum duration of this global administrator role. I will show you how to activate that in a bit. So if we go to the portal as a demo 01 user, for example, you will have the option to a maximum of 8 hours having access as a global administrator. He needs to provide some justification on the activation, requires ticket information on activation, depending on your services you have in the back. He may need to provide some additional information. And you have here also the option to configure approval process to activate this role. So if I click to approval process, I can select the user and select the user who has to provide or to approve this process. This makes sense for higher privileged roles like a global security compliance administrator, just depending really on your needs. So if you have a look on the demo user, this guy is logged in as a demo user on his browser, demo 01. He logged into the Azure portal, and if you go to the Active Directory, Azure Active Directory, you can see he has no access yet. So, but he has the option to go to the PIM role because we have assigned this role as eligible to him. He will see all his roles assigned. For example, he also has the Intune administrator role, which is eligible to him, global administrator and Teams administrators. And if you go to activate now, he has exactly this configuration available, which we have seen here on the left-hand side, a maximum of 8 hours. Of course, the user is able to reduce this time and or doing a custom activation start time, even that is possible if it's configured. And because we have here the require justification on activation, he needs to provide a justification. So it's a demo. I click activate, and this role will be activated for the demo user within a short time. That was fast. Usually it takes a bit longer, and you can see browser is refreshed. So he has now this access within his browser session. And if you go back to Azure Active Directory, he should have access to all his settings. He can see the tenant information. So he has now the global administrator role for 8 hours. It's a very nice feature. Of course, the user can then go back to the privileged identity management role, checking his roles, and he will see his active assignments and have the option to again deactivate this role again. This will lock him out from this for that privileged access role. He still has access during the browser session, so he has to close the browser, and that will stop the access. Let's go back to our presentation for a short while. We have also the option to having access based on Azure AD groups. That's a very nice feature as well, because in some scenarios, which I will show you in a bit, it's not nice to have an admin assigned the whole time. So you can provide just-in-time access to a specific group and assigning that group to the service. And of course, also monitoring that. It's still in preview since a while now. It's also an Azure AD Premium feature. So you need Azure AD Premium P2 at least for that service. And actually each user which is accessing that service needs also this P2 license. So I had prepared this demo, and it's a bit weird. We'll try to show you what happens. So what we do now, we have let's say we have sensitivity labels in place. So we go to the security center, not to the security center here, to the other security. Or even better, we go to the compliance, which makes more sense for our sensitivity labels. We have some information protection sensitivity labels in place. As you can see, a bunch of them. Labs for your eyes only, is it called? So we will see that label within the Word, Excel, PowerPoint add-in from our Office. And one policy says 2 persons or 2 users have access to that label. So it's published to demo 01 and demo 02. That's just the content with here. If we go to the Azure Information Protection Service, I have a PowerShell session open here. You can see we have a IP service enabled. Yeah, we worked just before. Let me just quickly log in here. So I do not get a challenge. There we go. So our AIP service in the backend is of course enabled because we have the label. And the more important, which I would like to show you, it's the AIP super user feature. This super user feature allows us to read all encrypted documents with if we're part of that super user if we're with our account, are a member of that super user feature, then we will have access to all encrypted accounts, and that's maybe a compliance issue. Currently, you can see no AIP service super user is assigned, but we have assigned AIP super user group, which is called Group Demo 2020 AIP super user group. For that, now we provided some access, and if we go to the group, if you go to this group we have here on the right-hand side, we have the option to assign some privileged access to this specific group. Privileged access assigning. I have created before that demo group, I have created also the privileged access for the Alain Schneiter account. Just to provide you the details, if we go to Teams and we have a file here, which is called demo file, and I open that, it should be a prompting with an IRM message that it is encrypted. Yes, I can edit that, and because I'm the demo 01 user, I should also be able to open that document within the label. So you can see demo super user, it's encrypted with demo 02, and demo 01 has access to that file, but not me as Alain Schneiter. So if I go within my browser session here to that file, I will get the same message, the IRM message. I will have to open the file, and if it's correctly configured, I should not have access because it's encrypted with that. I do not have access, at least I can show you. Probably paste my details in here. Should provide another error. So you're not signed in, request permission, it's not working. The nice thing now is I have this group configured with the details of privileged access. I can now go to my PIM request. Privileged access groups have several groups here, so for that, and requesting access here. So my roles have this group here configured, and I'm able now to assign me access to this AIP super user feature and to activate that as a group member. Same here. Getting the access will provide me access to the group and will also provide me AIP service super user, which means I can read encrypted mails, encrypted documents in the backend. So what I would like to show you is just that you can assign privileged access to specific groups. It's in preview, and maybe there are use cases, especially like services like that, where you require some more compliance access or monitoring access to specific data, like e-discovery cases, stuff like that. You can provide a group and assigning access to this. It usually takes up to 10 minutes to get that sorted here, so I will go back in a bit and then show you that I can open the Word file from there. So another one very nice thing is the access packages. If you have worked with access packages, you see a lot of benefits because it does automate a lot of stuff for you or for the IT. You can assign some resources like applications, resources like SharePoint sites or stuff like that to your specific access packages. It could be just a single SharePoint site. It can also be a group or an application like Box, Salesforce, or some other stuff. It helps you to really automate that, to provide an access link, maybe for your guest accounts, even for external access. People outside of your organization will receive an access link and do a self-enrollment for their access roles. This is pretty cool, and I would like to show you how that works now. So if you go back to our governance, identity governance app within Azure, we have under Untitled Management access packages, and you can see there are some catalogs which we can provide. Catalogs mean you can provide a specific resource pool for some applications, for some SharePoint sites, as I mentioned before, that's actually containing all the resources here. And if you'd like to work with some other organizations outside from your organization, you can add some connected organization like, let's say, I don't know right now what I should provide here, but you can see there is one configured, so it's scope-wise our own company, and it's outside because this is a scope-wise labs tenant, and we'll show you how that works. You have some settings where you can edit the management of the life cycle of the external users. That's what I mentioned in one slide. You have the availability to block external users from signing into the directory after they don't have any access anymore, and also remove the external user based on a specific date of the time. This specific catalogs you can also assign to people that they can manage the catalog. So it means no identity governance admins or some admins outside of that identity governance part can manage the catalog, can add SharePoint sites, can add groups, and providing some resources there. So if you start to create, let's have a look on that. We create a demo access package. You also have to provide a description. It's a required field. You can create a catalog or can choose a catalog, create a new catalog, depending what your preferred method is for that specific access package. And then you can also here add your own resources. So let's say we would like to provide access to that team we have in the backend here. It's the teams we have here. That's the Microsoft 365 group. We will add that to that specific resource group, and maybe also add application. Let's say, yeah, into PowerShell is fine for these people. They can use that, and add also SharePoint site. So if you have more SharePoint sites, we can list them. Do only have the domain, which is the demo SharePoint site. Here we have to select the role. So let's say that team or that resource package allows to be an owner. It's a default access for that specific application if nothing else is configured. And we have for that SharePoint site, these people are going to be members of that SharePoint site. Now we will connect users not in our directory, that means guest access, and provide that access to a specific configured directory. So scopewise.com will have access to that, and only that access will be provided to these specific user accounts. We do not need an approval, but we would like to enable that. That's fine for us. We don't need any requester information. We could add some questions here and providing some answers, or let's do that. How are you? Just a short text. It's that one. And then we can do an expiration of the whole access package on a specific date. So let's say at the end of the week, this access package is no longer available. We have our life cycle, number of days or never. Advanced expiration settings we also can set, and access reviews. We will not provide that right now. Let's create that. This should go pretty fast. So we then have this demo access package created. It contains these resources we have seen. And this is now a link you can provide to these people from scopewise.com, for example. Send it by email, do that automatically by some Power Applications, Power Automate stuff, grabbing this link. For now, we will copy that and I go into my standard browser session, which is Scopewise. I have now the option to access that access package, which is in Scopewise Labs, as you can see here. It redirects me to that tenant. It's a self-service access package. I have the option to request access for Teams, for SharePoint, and for Intune PowerShell app we have also selected. Let's say we request that access. You can see, how are you? Good. I have to provide that request for specific period. I could do that as a user. I just like to submit that. Submitting your request. It goes to that request option, and it mostly takes a while. So let's say maybe 1 minute, because it goes through the whole process. You can see here the details of that process. I have submitted that and default access. It's auto-approved, delivering the access. It provides me the details, and it provides in the backend of the Scopewise Labs, Azure backend, this access. So let's wait for a few more seconds. You also have in the My Access portal your requests, all your requests you've made within the last couple of weeks, months. If it goes into an approval process, you will see also the approvals here, if you're the approver. And the same is for the access reviews, which we will have a look in a second. So that was the history. Let's see if it's done. It's still delivering. Check the email. It's not there yet, because you will have you will get an access email as the end user, which provides you something like that. You received access to demo. Get started. It was earlier this morning. I tried to start the demo. And of course, you can also end your access by yourself. That's possible. It's still delivering. So in the backend, it still delivers the access to that specific request. It takes 1 to 2 minutes, and then you will have access, and you can log into that. So that's one option, really, to use the identity governance in the backend, because it helps you really to provide standard access to your resources specific for a guest access, for example. But you can do that also for your internal user, of course, provide that. But a very nice option is, for example, using that as a solution to provide access automatically, provide the link to the partner, and they can access the link by themselves. On the other hand, you have the access reviews, which helps you to review the access to specific resources from time to time. So if you go to the access reviews, we have we have maybe here, you can see this demo 2020, some members in here. If we go to the team, we will have the demo user 01 is the main user, he's the owner. We have also some members, which is again Alain Schneiter from Scopewise Labs, but does not have the owner rights. And you can also provide guests. So if you create for that specific teams an access review, we have a start time. We should configure how many times this review has to be done. So let's say in a monthly manner, it's a maximum of 27 days. Each 27 day, the owner in our specific configuration will then receive access review email, and he has to go through to the recommendation and provide the access or deny the access. So let's say this will never end, or this ends by a specific date. Let's say in about 3 months, it will end. The users to review. So who needs to be reviewed within that group? Let's say members of a group, only guests, or everyone. So we will say everyone. So even the demo user itself needs to be reviewed. And now we can select the group. It's the group in the backend from the Teams Microsoft 365 group. We have also the option to assign the default program. So we've seen this program before. What happens exactly with the program? What happens when the completion settings? What's there? We have the possibility to auto-apply results to resources. This means the backend, the service will provide you some details about the results. If a user has not logged in for a proper time, let's say 30 days, the access will be removed automatically. And if the reviewer does not respond, we can also say remove access or take recommendations. So the recommendations will be provided within the email or within the message. The recommendation will show a deny or approve message. Show recommendations. Yes, we have enabled that. Require reasons on approval. We can disable that. Mail notification. We prefer to have that, and some reminders. They will be sent out from the system in a specific time. So let's start that access review. And usually the owner gets the email to review the content and the members of this people here. So the owner is the demo 01. And if you go to Outlook here, let's see if it comes in to email to review that. So that takes a while. It's always tricky to demonstrate things like that, because usually takes 1 to 2-3 minutes to see that, and then there is no email popping in. But if you receive an email, it looks something like that. It will remind you if the reminder is enabled. Initial policy requires you review user access, and because it's already reviewed, I cannot do it here, but there seems to be coming in a new email. Yeah, you can see action required, review users, group demo. So I have the option now to start the review as the owner of the team. It goes again to the My Access portal. It provides you some recommendations. So it says approve this guy and this guy as well, because they have logged in during the last 30 days. Can select that and say approve or deny, depending on what I prefer. Or can say accept recommendation, even more faster if you have multiple members. Say approve. I have to submit the reason. All good here. So in the backend then approves that this people to the group again for the next 27 days. So the access reviews really helps you to have this automated access reviews and lifecycle management. And what we recommend to do is, if you create a team normally in an automated way, like with a Power Automate or some other applications, also create an access review within and for that specific Microsoft 365 group or team. I know it needs a P2 license, but it really helps you managing the whole life cycle for Teams or SharePoint sites. So that was the demo. Let's sum up that a bit. It's a part, the identity governance or the identity management, it's maybe a part of Zero Trust because it really helps you to protect identities, it helps you to protect applications, it helps you to protect resources. Please enable MFA if you have not done that. It's really required in these days, especially. Use just-in-time access for your privileged accounts at least. We have seen global admins, security compliance administrator, Exchange, SharePoint administrators. So all these high privileged accounts, you should enable at least some more steps to authenticate and not to have a permanent assignment of this role. Least privileged, don't assign global administrator to all your administrator roles. That does not make sense. And if you have the option to start with the identity governance part, start small. That's a recommendation, not trying to implement anything. If you have some teams, groups, start maybe with a few access reviews. In a later state, create access packages for your internal users and provide some good documentations how they can access that. So again, thank you to our sponsors. It's 45, 46. And let's go into the feedback. Please provide me some feedback. That would be good to help me. And if you have any questions, I will try to answer them now.